War's a hell of a thing. Commissioned review, and this one was for about half of an anime series. 86, which I knew literally nothing about. I never heard of it, didn't know what the genre was, because, reminder, anime is a visual style and occasionally speaks to the national origins of a work. Anime is not a genre. In any case, this, so I was strictly speaking only commissioned to watch the first 11. I did watch a couple past that. I did stop, not because I didn't like it or I fell off it. I'll talk about it in a minute. Spoiler, I liked it. But the thing was that the first 11 episodes are very much a segmented part. It is very much a part one. And then where it picked up from after that, I don't want to say it reset stuff, but it sort of, it dialed back the momentum to like introduce some new characters, and then before it was going to start building a good head of steam again. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm up for this right now, or at least not binging it through the remainder of my 1 week free trial of Crunchyroll. And also one of the new characters who was introduced, who's going to be a major feature, I was like, I don't know about that. So I figured, since I was only actually commissioned to review the first 11, let me actually give my thoughts on those, because I really like them. Like, first 11 episodes of this, fantastic. So let's talk plot and premise. So this is a futuristic, not drastically futuristic, but futuristic set. War story is probably the most accurate way to put it. So what you have is you have a civilization that is at war. Now, what they are at war against is basically a nation that no longer exists, but its army is still up and running. So they're up against this legion of drone fighters that just keep coming. But they figure that they only need to wait them out, because after a certain amount of time, the programs that these things were originally designed for, they were only designed to run for so long. So even though the nation that built this stuff no longer exists, it won't run infinitely, so they just have to wait it out. And they fight back by having their own drone army of autonomous units that are overseen by handlers. So we first get introduced to the handler Lena, Major Melize. My head gets it. Lena, who is sort of the initial character of focus. What is made very clear very quickly is, despite the official line on the armed forces being drones and unmanned, and that this republic that's fighting off the Legion have never had any casualties in the war, that's on technicality, because their drones are absolutely manned. They're just manned by people who have been legally designated not only non-citizens, but not human. So the drones are manned by the titular 86, because when the Legion started coming for them, the nation was divided into 86 districts, 85 enclosed within a safe zone, and then the 86th district outside, which was made up of everyone they didn't like. Now, if I'm going to criticize it, and I am, there's one thing that's a personal taste thing, and one thing that's a little, it's not awful, but it does feel like a little bit of a cheat. So what that is we're very clearly dealing with a supremacist society. So everybody who lives in this republic, who is a citizen, who is recognized as one, they all have white hair. And the 86, they have any hair color that isn't white. And at one point in a flashback, we even see one of them called a colored. So that's pretty overt. Given that I'm not going to say there aren't any black characters. I remember at least one briefly. But the regular cast certainly they're all the same skin tone. It's I get what it's doing. Like it's very clearly like we're doing this so we're not literally doing white supremacy, but it's very analogous to white supremacy. It actually maps on pretty well to white supremacy in terms of the treatment of those who are designated as not the same as you. But like there is that weird distancing of like, oh, but they all have non-white hair. Hair? Really? I mean, I suppose one could argue that it is making the point that the designation of race and skin tone is about as arbitrary as hair color. You might as well be, completely making a distinction between people with white hair and people with non-white hair. It makes about as much sense. You could argue that's the case. It still feels like a slightly odd thing. Like, maybe just make the thing what it is. Like, there are sometimes that allegory and metaphor enhance the story, and there are other times that it's like, I think you might have actually muddied your point slightly. Again, it's not awful, but I did kind of raise an eyebrow at that one a little bit. The one other thing that I didn't super like is just more of a personal taste thing, which is that pretty much all the cast are teenagers of one stripe or another, sort of ranging, if I were to guess, I don't remember anybody's age being said explicitly, but I think we're dealing with like 14 to 18, 19 tops as kind of our age range for the characters. Because like Major Milize is very youthful, borderline naive at times, idealistic, certainly. And then you have the various members of the 86, of the Spearhead Squadron that she has become the handler for. And, they are all on the young side. And overall, that's actually not inherently a problem. Like, I thought the age was going to be an inherent problem for me because I have a long-running thing with animes that they just scale their characters way too damn young. I talked about this in more detail way back when I did a video on Cowboy Bebop, which isn't even anywhere near the most egregious instance of that, but I still, took the opportunity to get on a soapbox about it slightly. The thing is, how young these characters are is actually relevant, and it doesn't feel like a complete disconnect. Because the thing that usually bugs me in animes is like you have a character who is 19, but they have the skill repertoire of a 30-year-old and are acting like they've had 3 full careers already. Like, what the hell? This isn't that. The fact that they're this young is actually pretty relevant. In the case of Lena, like, she hasn't been completely ground down by the system yet. She's kind of a cross between a little bit of a prodigy at what she does, but also like a little bit of a legacy Nepo baby. So like you could argue she has moved further along in the command structure than maybe she deserves to, and that accounts for her youth. But her youth and her idealism, holding on to the espoused values of the Republic, even as the Republic itself does not live up to them. I think that works better with the youthful character, so that works. And as for the actual members of the 86, they are literally not intended to live long. That's the point. So their actual age was not the problem. However, there were a couple of stretches early on. I remember episode 3 in particular, where I don't know whether it was to fill time or like to get us more endeared to these characters. They just had what I can only describe as teenage anime nonsense go on for a bit. The thing where like, oh, the girls they're bathing. Like it's not fully lurid. They're not like naked, but like, oh, the girls are in their underwear bathing in the pond and the boys are spying on them. Oh, but one of the boys likes one of the girls. And like, let's shove him out so he gets seen and humiliated. It's like, this is just anime teenage shenanigans, and I'm not here for them. I don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy teenage shenanigans particularly much, whether it's anime or not at this point, but the stereotypical anime nonsense, teenage nonsense, I really don't care for. Thankfully, though, it does move past it relatively quickly because it's certainly not the point. And as I said, it is largely there to give you a sense of the normal for these guys, or like not even the normal, what a good day for these characters looks like, because you're going to see some bad days. It actually does a really good job of balancing the characters, especially of the 86, because I think you could have very easily overdone it in either direction. And it manages to walk the line between them. On the one extreme, you could have had these characters completely just worn down by their circumstances, just gruff, hating their circumstances. They do it because there's nothing else for them to do. They hate everything. They know their lives are short. Ugh. It doesn't do that. The other option is that they have this weirdly naive, bubbly, and we're going to defeat them, and then after we do our 5 years in the army, we get to be citizens. Like, they're not that either. Like, they all know. It's really interesting. The 86, this team of them, they know that they're not only are they not expected to live this, it's actually the plan for them not to survive. They are not only expected to die, they are intended to die. And they know that, and they still go out and fight because they still think there's value in that. And they're not a hive mind. Different members of it deal with it in different ways. Like, one of them is very outwardly hostile to Lena, and I would say very deservedly. But a lot of them just kind of have this middle line of like, look, we're just trying to have the best days that we can with the days that we've got. And what else are we supposed to do? There's no point in being miserable about it. We're probably going to die regardless. And that's a really tough angle to take a character from, especially like a group of characters where that's the general thing, especially a group of characters where, minor spoilers, you're going to watch a fair amount of them die, and you're going to watch this group get whittled down to a smaller and smaller number of survivors over time. It doesn't really flinch over the fact that these people are dying. And without being gory or graphically violent, it finds really interesting ways to really bring across the horror of what it is that's going on. Because one of the things that gets found out is that the Legion actually won't run down after another 2 years. Because if they take out one of the 86's sort of like little spider tanks that they pilot. The action scenes are actually pretty good as well. I would hesitate to call it an action anime because it's not really the primary focus of it, but when it does action, it is done very well. But when one of them dies, the Legion will attempt to harvest their head to make use of their brain and human computing power that is used in upgraded combat units that are frankly terrifying. Then that is communicated really well, but also like the horror of that. And the fact that as a result, that when one of their comrades goes down, if they can, they need to go out and, whether this person's already dead or not, put a bullet through their brain so it's not usable. It's really morbid in a way that feels very earned. And the treatment of the 86, again, while the flimsiness of the allegory is a little bit like, what? I will say that moving past that issue, I think it's actually quite well handled. Because part of the reason I've mentioned already that the 86 are not only expected to die, but intended to die, is that the Republic actually wants them dead. It needs them to man its drones, but it also wants them all to die because it's been treating them horribly long before all this started. Before this, they were subject to human experimentation. The Republic wouldn't consider that because they have designated the 86 as not human. And that technicality they have used to justify a lot of horrible stuff. And enough folks at the Republic realize that and realize that that's actually pretty messed up, that at this point, even if they think that this is kind of wrong, they're going to keep doing it anyway because they need all the 86 to die. Because if the war ends and any of them are left, then they will have to answer for what they did. Whereas if there are none of them left, they can just claim, oh, well, we just had these drones and we used them and we won. And if any other nation comes a-knocking, they don't have to answer for what they did. and it has a really strong focus on characters that I appreciate. The main, I'd say there's a core of 5 members. There's more than 5 members, but there's a core of 5 members of the Spearhead Squadron of characters who are 86 that are nicely diverse in terms of personality between each other. You have your primary one, Shin, who again, it's nicely balanced. He's got angst. Don't get me wrong, he's got anime angst. But he's not devoid of the ability to smile or laugh or be kind. He's got angst, but he's not buried under it. Again, walking that really fine line. This was real good. And I can't promise I'll ever circle back to it. The thing is that first 11 does make for a really good chapter break. It's not really a complete story. There's definitely stuff left to be picked up on and worked with later, but it is certainly a breathing point, if not a stopping point. And when or if I'll have the time or inclination or means to circle back to this again, I don't know. Those first 11 episodes, that first part of the show, that's real good stuff. Have you seen this? Have you read the light novels that this is based off of? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, and is how I was commissioned to review this show. But, you know, even if you can't support me that way, like, share, subscribe. They all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break.
And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Mutfullah, Goddess Elida, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Gene Foray, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Trixie Scrabbit, Angry Casperel, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pal Barabajagal, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Oh look, you actually get a face this time and not just butts.